When your doctor recommends starting your day with fiber, we're going to assume they're talking about internet.
Alexis, turn on the lamp.
Okay, let there be light.
Actually, it's a little warm in here. Can you turn on the AC?
You got it. Motion has been detected at your front door.
I bet that's my package.
It's, arrived.
No matter how much stuff you have, it all works better on Ting Internet.
I'm going to talk a little bit about heroes because that's what all my children's books are about, including my latest, Thank You, Dr. Salk. I write about famous real-life people who I admire and who I've always wanted to be like. So let me share my screen with you and tell you about when I first fell in love with heroes. When I was a little kid, I thought all heroes looked like this, or like this, or like this. They were amazing people who fought for good and battled evil and saved the world. My favorite hero was Superman. He had super strength, he could run super fast, and he could even fly. Pretty exciting, right? Superman looked like this, and at the time, I myself looked like this. In other words, I didn't think I looked like a hero at all. I wasn't good at sports, I didn't have super strength, and I couldn't fly, even though I really did try. So I was pretty sure I wasn't a hero and could never grow up to be one. Well, everything started to change when I began reading about real-life people who were as brave as Superman. They didn't have superpowers, but they did have courage and determination to change the world. I wrote about them in books like Two Friends, which is about the champions of freedom and equality, Susan B. Anthony and Frederick Douglass. I wrote Miss Paul and the President about the brave person who fought for women's right to vote, Alice Paul. The Astronaut Who Painted the Moon is about the fearless astronaut Alan Bean, and Margaret and the Moon is about the computer scientist who helped get people to the moon for the first time. Her name was Margaret Hamilton. I was especially excited to discover a scientist named Jonas Salk, because when he was a little kid, Jonas was a lot like me. He wasn't strong or fast or good at sports. He was also quiet in class, so people in his school didn't really notice him that much. But the thing that surprised me is that Jonas did grow up to be a hero. He couldn't fly, and he didn't have super strength like Superman, but he did figure out a way to save the world. In fact, that's part of the title of my new book. The full title is Thank You, Dr. Salk, the scientist who beat polio and healed the world. So how did a quiet, skinny little kid like Jonas Salk turn into a hero? Well, it started with the fact that at a really young age, he promised himself that he would do something important in his life to help people. He was inspired by an idea in his Jewish religion called Tikkun Olam, which means healing the world. When he got older, Jonas decided that for him, the best way to heal the world was to become a scientist. He loved math and science, and he realized that he could use these skills to create vaccines to help end people's suffering. You might know that a vaccine is something that goes into your body, usually through a shot in your arm, and helps you fight off terrible diseases. Now, one of the most terrible diseases at that time, about 70 years ago, was called polio. This disease was really infectious, which means that it spread incredibly fast. It struck mostly children, and they could get it at the pool or at a park or anywhere else where lots of other children were playing. If you got polio, you could lose the use of your muscles and not be able to walk anymore, or you could even die from it. It was so scary that parents didn't want their children to go out and play during the summer. I remember my own grandmother telling me not to drink out of a water fountain at the zoo for fear of catching the disease. And this kind of thing went on for a long time, almost 40 years, because nobody could figure out how to keep people from getting polio. Okay, so I know all the talk about a disease is making this seem like a sad subject, but actually, Thank You, Dr. Salk is a book about joy and celebration and happiness. Let me tell you a little bit about why that is. The inspiring part of the story starts in the 1930s with the President of the United States, whose name was Franklin Roosevelt. President Roosevelt knew how terrible polio was because he had been struck by it himself. It had taken away his ability to walk, so he needed to use a wheelchair. Well, President Roosevelt decided that he would try to bring the whole country together to stop the spread of this disease. He helped create a group called the March of Dimes, which encouraged ordinary people to send their dimes or whatever else they could afford to help fund the scientists who were working on a polio vaccine. And the wonderful thing is, thousands of people answered his call all over the United States. Neighborhood groups held bake sales. Kids asked people to donate their spare change. Waiters and waitresses donated the tips they made at their restaurants. And so dimes and dollar bills poured into the White House. It was wonderful to see the whole country come together to try to solve a big problem, something that's not easy to do, as we've seen in our own time. So all that money helped to fund scientific research, and one of the scientists who took part was our old friend, Jonas Salk. Jonas spent long days in his laboratory trying out different ideas for a vaccine. He kept a notebook by his bed, waking up in the middle of the night to scribble down his ideas. He was dedicated to finding a vaccine quickly because he knew that the longer it took, the more people would suffer from polio. So was Jonas able to create this miraculous vaccine? And if so, how did he do it, since nobody else could figure out how to make one that worked? Well, how about if we read "Thank You, Dr. Salk," and see how it all happened? Now, while I'm reading, please look closely at the gorgeous illustrations by Mike Dutton, which really helped make this the kind of story I described earlier, one about joy and celebration and happiness. Okay, here we go with "Thank You, Dr. Salk." Jonas Salk watched his neighbors pass by, on canes, on crutches, in wheelchairs. The polio virus had struck in his city. Polio stiffened arms, legs, and necks. Some victims even died. No one knew what caused the disease or how it spread. Everyone feared catching it from everyone else. Adults kept away from bakeries and banks. Children kept away from pools and parks. People prayed for a cure, but who could stop this terrible epidemic? Jonas knew who. He would stop it. Few saw Jonas as a brave hero. He kept quiet in class. He could not run fast or leap high, but Jonas knew a different way to be brave. It came from his Jewish religion. He dreamed of tikkun olam, healing the world. Jonas vowed to stamp out polio. He would do it by reading books, learning math, and training to be a scientist. He needed to think of something no one had thought of before, something big. Jonas studied science in elementary school, high school, medical school. In 1947, Dr. Salk buttoned his lab coat. He was ready. He began searching for a vaccine to guard against polio. Scientists make vaccines to prevent disease in the human body. Vaccines had beaten other viruses like influenza and smallpox. But nobody could find one to beat polio, the sneakiest virus of all. Jonas filled test tubes, peered through his microscope, and grew samples of the virus to study. He experimented with many vaccines but couldn't find the perfect mixture. People heard about the kind young man trying hard to stop polio. Newspapers wrote about him. TV cameras filmed him. Children even sent him dimes for his research. In 1952, Jonas tried a new experiment, a big one. He grew the 3 kinds of poliovirus in his laboratory, poured in a chemical to make them harmless, and mixed them into a vaccine. Could these harmless polioviruses guard against the dangerous ones? Jonas tested the vaccine on a few brave volunteers, including his wife, his sons, and himself. By 1954, he knew it was safe enough for a bigger test. 2 million first, second, and third graders lined up at their schools for an exciting adventure. Doctors and nurses came in with trays of vaccines. Parents, teachers, and principals served as volunteers. Children rolled up their sleeves for a polio shot. The volunteers gave them a lollipop, a pin, and a special card. Everyone was proud to help Dr. Salk prevent the disease. Scientists spent the next year checking to see if the vaccine worked. On April 12, 1955, they had an answer. Jonas joined them to tell the whole planet. The vaccine worked. It beat polio. Cars honked, bells rang, adults danced, children jumped for joy. Millions lined up for polio shots at schools, libraries, and doctors' offices. Thank you letters piled up at Jonas's door. One letter was 200 feet long and signed by an entire town. Jonas did not sell his amazing vaccine. He gave it away for free. He said it belonged to all the people who took part in the fight against polio. Dr. Jonas Salk watched his neighbors pass by. Adults headed to bakeries and banks. Children headed to pools and parks. They waved at him, and he waved back. Jonas's dream had come true. Tikkun Olam, healing the world. So that's the end of the story. And I hope you understand now why I said that this is a book about joy and celebration and happiness. Even though we're just sitting here by our computers rather than being together all in person, I wonder if we can say, thank you, Dr. Salk, at the same time. How about if I count to 3 and we can all do it together as loud as we can, just for fun, okay? So ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Dr. Salk. So let me tell you just a little bit more about the celebration that broke out around the world when scientists announced that Jonas's vaccine was a success. Children sent him poems. Composers wrote songs in his honor. Parents named babies after him. Shopkeepers painted "Thank you, Dr. Salk" on their windows. Here's a picture of huge numbers of people lining up to get the vaccine. And here's a picture of the card and pin that kids got for being polio pioneers, the people who bravely helped Jonas test out the vaccine. Isn't it amazing to see a scientist getting that much love? I hope you and everyone else who reads "Thank you, Dr. Salk" will come to appreciate not only Jonas Salk, but all the dedicated scientists from our own time who are working hard to prevent diseases like the coronavirus that we've been struggling with for more than a year. So can we give a round of applause for Jonas Salk and all of today's scientists right here at our computers? Thank you, Dr. Salk, and thank you, scientists. Well, thank you for listening and for letting me tell you about some of my favorite heroes. I also wanted to mention that you can purchase Thank You, Dr. Salk and other books from the festival through our indie bookseller partners. Check out this title and others at bookshop.org/shop/SDFOB. That's bookshop.org/shop/SDFOB. Well, it's especially exciting for me to be part of the San Diego Union-Tribune Festival of Books, since Jonas spent a big part of his life in San Diego. He founded the Salk Institute here, which is dedicated to research that helps scientists find new ways to heal the world. So let me end by suggesting an activity that we can all do together, one that's about healing the world. As we learned when Jonas was a boy, he wanted to make the world a better place. So we decided to become a scientist who prevents disease. For this activity, I'm going to ask you to list 1 or 2 or 3 of the ways that you might make the world a better place when you grow up. Let your imagination run wild and think about some of the ways that you could help to heal the world, like Jonas Salk did in his own way. And maybe you could even draw a picture showing yourself making the world a better place. I'd love to see some of the ideas that you come up with. Well, in the meantime, it's been a pleasure to speak with you today and to share my book with you. Again, I'm Dean Robbins, and I'm so happy you were able to join us at the San Diego Union-Tribune Festival of Books. Bye-bye.
Hello, I'm Jose Cruz. I'm the CEO for the San Diego Council on Literacy. We work with a network of 29 youth, adult, and family literacy programs that annually serve 160,000 residents of all ages at no cost. Our mission is to unite the community to support literacy. It's an exciting year for us. It's our 35th anniversary. It's also the 5th anniversary of the San Diego Union-Tribune Festival of Books. The San Diego Council on Literacy is a beneficiary of this event. So when you participate, you support literacy, especially through the author panels and just in general. So when you participate in this event, you also make it possible for another person, a child or an adult, to improve their reading and writing skills so they can read the books that you read. We have our favorite event activities. We like the Storytime Hour, and you probably have your favorites too. So we hope that you'll join us at the San Diego Union-Tribune Festival of Books and learn more too about the work of the San Diego Council on Literacy by going to literacysandiego.org. Thank you.